This is a screen capture of some of the procedures related to the Institute on Aging's multi-factor authentication setup and usage of the Remote Desktop Services server farm that is being rolled out in the first half of 2019. The, um, the, there will be a number of steps involved, the first of which is to make sure that we do have a few prerequisites out of the way. One, these procedures are going to assume that you will have a smartphone available, either an Apple iPhone or a Google Android-based smartphone. And there is an app installed on your smartphone called Duo Mobile on Apple iOS that will be found via this page within the App Store, which you could download from your device. And you'll see a similar page for Duo Mobile within the Google Play Store. So once those apps are installed on your smartphone, that's it. You don't need to launch them just yet. We'll get to that in a later part of this process. So let's open up a new browser or a new tab. You could use, here I'm using Microsoft Edge, but you can also use Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Apple Safari, or for the next few months at least, Microsoft Internet Explorer. Just keep in mind that Internet Explorer will soon be going end of life, so I do recommend that you begin migrating your usage to one of those other browsers I mentioned, including favorites and so forth. Alright, so to begin this setup, we're going to run through the process called Initial MFA Enrollment using a smartphone and the Duo Mobile app. We first need to navigate to the new Institute on Aging Remote Desktop Web Access Server, and that's at https rds.ioaging.org. So https://rds.ioaging.org. Once we're here, you basically enter in your full Institute on Aging email address, which is also your network logon user account name. In my case, I'm using a test account. So normally, Institute on Aging users have a name portion that's their first initial plus their full last name. In my case, it's a little bit different. There are some variations, but the vast majority of folks have first initial last name at ioaging.org. Enter in your password. And the first time that we log into this site, we'll basically be prompted to enroll into Duo multi-factor authentication. Duo Security is the platform we're using to enable multi-factor authentication, and the screens that you're seeing here are actually just IOA branded pages, but they're actually being hosted by this Duo Security service. So let us begin the setup process, and there's going to be a corresponding series of steps on your smartphone. We're going to skip over those for now and just show the screens from the PC side of things. I'll create a companion screen capture that will basically go through the screens from the mobile device perspective. So we'll click Start Setup, and in this particular procedure, we're assuming the use or the availability and use of a smartphone. So in this case, mobile phone. Mobile phone in this case actually means a device that is capable of running the Duo Mobile app, as opposed to a regular phone line, the traditional phone line that basically just can receive and make calls. That is termed a landline, even though a mobile device can also apply here, even if it's a smartphone for which you do not want to run the Duo Mobile app, for example. You could choose landline. The options to use the new Institute on Aging Remote Desktop Server, it has to be either mobile phone or landline. The other options, security key, for example, is incompatible with the remote desktop server. So, and in any case, this will only appear when you're using Google Chrome, or only appear enabled and selectable when you're using Chrome. All right, so in this case, we're assuming a smartphone use. So let's Let's select mobile phone. We'll continue. We'll enter in our phone number for our mobile device. And in this case, it will ask me to verify that this number is mine. I'll click continue. Now I need to specify what type of smartphone it is. In this case, this number belongs to an Apple iPhone. Click continue. And in our case, I do already have the Duo mobile app installed on my smartphone. So let me log into my smartphone. Okay, so at this point, I've made sure that the Duo mobile app is installed. I see its icon right on my home screen on my Apple iPhone. I'll click I have Duo mobile installed. I'll now be presented with a QR code, a one-time use QR code. Now what I do is I go to my mobile device, I tap on the Duo mobile app icon, which launches the app. I'm asked if I would like to allow Duo Mobile to send me notifications. I want to allow that, so I click allow, and I am dropped onto the Duo Mobile welcome screen. So at this point, I can either tap the plus icon at the top of the screen or the add account link at the bottom of the screen. I'll just click on the add account link. It's larger. I'm presented with another permission notification, and it asks, Apple iOS asks, Duo Mobile would like to access the camera. Would you like to allow this? Yes, okay, I do need to allow this. I need to allow the camera to scan the QR code. So the camera comes up, the viewfinder comes up. I place the camera so that the QR code appears within the camera. It's automatically captured and the QR code is deciphered, and now on my smartphone I have the Institute on Aging account registered within Duo, and you'll notice that the check mark appeared on the QR code. So everything is good to go. My smartphone looks good and my PC looks good. Let's click continue. Now I'm presented with a login option, and I basically have the ability to specify how I would like my multi-factor authentication prompts to be sent to me. I can basically defer selection by choosing this default option. Ask me to choose an authentication method. That allows me to toggle between the use of the mobile app via push notifications, for example, um, the entering of a randomly generated passcode, or a phone call type option. If I know that I would I would prefer to have one or the other of those options, I can select them here. So in this case, the middle option, automatically send this device to do a push, means that when I'm prompted for a multi-factor authentication event, it'll send a notification to my smartphone, and I could then act on that notification. Otherwise, if I choose the third option here, the last option in this list, to automatically call this device, instead of pushing a notification to my phone, it'll actually call the phone. Between the two, the most convenient and the fastest is Duo Push. Um, but there are perhaps some cases where a phone call might be necessary. And that'll come into play a bit later when we demonstrate logging into the actual remote desktop server. Now, I typically choose the allow me to choose at the point of login, because sometimes I do prefer to have one method or another, or I want to test things. But if you do prefer to have a do a push versus call, that's up to you. You can certainly select your preference. In my case, I'm going to leave it at the default, and I'll continue to log in. So this has all been set up in enrollment. Now I'm continuing to log in. Now I'm presented with this screen. So normally, right after you log into the website, the rds.ioaging.org website, upon successful validation of your first authentication factor, you would be sent to this page. We just had all those other intervening screens because it was our first time visiting the site. We had to enroll
into MFA. Second and subsequent times will go directly to this screen. So now you can see I have these options. Send me a push just means that we'll get a notification on a device, and we can either tap that notification to automatically launch the Duo mobile app, or we could 3D touch that notification and you can actually act upon that MFA request right there. That's one of the reasons why Duo Push is very efficient, very quick. You don't actually have to launch the app to um, approve your login request. Call Me will basically give you a call. The number will appear to be coming from the main 3575 Geary IOA phone number, but it's actually coming from Duo Mobile. And you'll hear an automated message saying that press press a certain key to accept the multi-factor authentication request, or any other key, I believe, to reject the request. Passcode basically means that instead of getting a push or a call, you'd prefer to enter in I believe, a 6-digit code each time you log in, or this time when you're logging in. This passcode is actually displayed in a rotating fashion in the Duo Mobile app. So typically you're going to use this if for some reason you're not able to receive a push notification, perhaps due to data network issues, and you'd prefer to enter in the passcode rather than get a phone call. In this case, I'm going to say send me a push. On my mobile device, I just received a pop-up notification. I'm going to uh, approve it, and now I'm in. So I have completed my first multi-factor authentication login. The first authentication factor was my username and password, and the second authentication factor was the Duo Mobile push notification, confirming that yes, I would like to proceed with this login. The first authentication factor is what's called something you know. You know your username and password. The Duo Mobile piece of it, via the push notification or call me or passcode entry, that's called something you have. So the combination of something you know plus something that you have, and theoretically no one else has, is a way to really hone in on the fact that you are who you claim you are. And that's certainly going to help. With the multi-factor authentication, it also means that if for some reason your user credentials are compromised, perhaps stolen or somehow intercepted by some third party, they even though they have your username and password, they won't be able to do much with it, at least for MFA protected systems, because they won't have your smartphone or your phone number to be able to accept the full login request and that multi-factor authentication prompt. So here we are, we're in the remote desktop web access site after having logged in, and now we see basically just one icon here, the IOA Common Desktop, or desktop/common. This is basically the replacement to the ts.ioaging.org terminal server. This is a newer version of that. It has the latest Microsoft Office 365 software, and it's also running one of the latest operating systems, so it should have a bit of life left in it. It also has some improvements in terms of its user interface. For those of you who have attempted to use the ts.ioaging.org on large format monitors and have bemoaned the lack of DPI scaling, the ability for the screen to automatically adjust its its viewing size as you use scale up or scale down based on the size of your computer display. The latest version of this remote desktop has DPI scaling, so it's much easier on the eyes to use, particularly when you're using very small or very large screens. In this case, let's go ahead and launch the icon by clicking on it. we're prompted to save the file or open it directly. Um, if you save the file to your desktop, you can actually go and launch this icon directly from your desktop and bypass this website. So in this case, I'm just going to open it directly, but normally you'd probably want to save it to your desktop or to some other location where you can easily access this shortcut in the future when you want to get to the remote desktop. Okay, so we're prompted for our login again. We're actually switching to a different server. That's why we're being prompted for a login again. We're actually going away from this web access site at this point. So if my first factor login is successful, I should get this disclaimer screen. I'm going to click I understand, and then before I click OK, have your mobile device handy. So unlike with the web access server where we were prompted to select the type of method we want or presented with a user interface for the multi-factor authentication prompt, the remote desktop unfortunately does not prompt with any sort of user interface. So once I click OK, I'm going to silently get either a duo push or a call on my smartphone. Um, it Which one you get depends on how you've enrolled. In my case, because I enrolled a smartphone running the Duo mobile app, and Duo Security, the Duo Security platform knows that I can accept a Duo push notification. It's going to default to sending me a Duo push. If for some reason I wasn't using a smartphone with the Duo mobile app, Duo Security would actually default to the call me method and just give me that automated call to my phone number, my registered phone number. All right, so I've received my Duo push notification. Let me accept that on my smartphone. So now we are entering into the remote desktop. Standard security notice screen. So let's click through that. And now we'll begin the login process. Note that the first time that you log into this new remote desktop, it might take a bit longer than you're accustomed to from using ts.ioaging.org. That's because there's some provisioning that's being done in the background, and that's a one-time event. So the second and subsequent times that you access the remote desktop server, it won't take as long to fire up and get you to your remote desktop. So we're just waiting for the system to load, and once it does, we see that we've got a number of icons, application icons available. Basically, what we have on here um, are the common Microsoft Office 365 applications: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. For those of you who might have Visio, there's also Visio installed. We've also got the standard browsers available: Microsoft Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, and Mozilla Firefox. Here on a PC, if you were using your own, um, actually no, that's incorrect. So just those three browsers at the moment. And a couple of other options which we'll talk about later. There's also Skype for Business, for example. There's also a shortcut to the Y drive. So in my case, if I wanted to just quickly access some of the common file shares, Institute on Aging file shares, I could just double click that desktop shortcut. I'll get right there. I'm going to open up the Windows File Explorer. Like you would see on your own computers, typically when you're logging into an IOA Office network, I do have my drive mappings, my default drive mappings. In this case, I have a Y drive and an X drive. Some of you might have different drive mappings. But if they are loading um, automatically as opposed to a drive mapping that you yourself created, if they're being loaded by a login script or what's called a group policy, then those should load on this remote desktop as well. All right, let us try to launch a couple of Office apps. So let's launch Word. And the first time that you launch Word, it will be a little bit different than the second and subsequent times. So notice that I'm being asked to sign in. So this is a little bit different than the applications that were installed on ts.iowaging.org. The the applications, the Microsoft Office applications installed on the new RDS server are fully tied to Office 365. So you will need an Office 365 license, an E3 license or better, to access these applications in their full read-write, fully editable form. If you don't have access to the software, you don't have a license assigned to you, definitely speak with your manager, and if authorized, you can contact Intivix, and we can get you set up with the licenses that you might need. So in my case, the first time that we sign in to the remote desktop, we also have to sign in to Office 365. So let's go through that process. We need to tell Office 365 our email address, which is also your Office 365 username. At this point, it should refer me back to our new DO security-based login screen. Unfortunately, the username doesn't transfer through, so I have to enter it again. That was unexpected and unfortunate, but if that happens, it typically will happen on your initial sign-in. So no matter, let's go through that again. Sometimes it pays to be persistent, so we'll just do it over again. This time it should be better behaved. So in this case, just like with the Remote Desktop Web Access Server, Office 365, for those of you on a multi-factor authentication policy, um, you'll also be prompted for the same sorts of things. If I had selected push or call me as the default options, it would just do that automatically. In my case, I had asked it to allow me to choose which method I would like. So in this case, I'll choose send me a push. And I just got the request on my mobile device. Let me log in and approve. Okay, now it's going to do some house cleaning, and I'm in. I now have registered with the Office 365 apps. And when I click on account, notice that I have all of my information here. And as long as I log in, as long as the time between logins is less than 30 days to this remote desktop, I shouldn't have to sign in again. Or rather, I shouldn't have to uh, activate the software again. I might have to re-enter my password after a few weeks, but I shouldn't have to reactivate. If, however, you only infrequently use the remote desktop server and you go more than 30 days or more between logins, that basically means that on the Microsoft Office 365 side, it'll require you to reactivate the software upon your next access. All right, just to demonstrate that that login in Word also transfers through to the other business apps, I'll go over to Excel and notice that I'm already signed in. And let's do PowerPoint. Okay, and we do see that I'm logged in as expected. All right, this holds true for Microsoft Outlook as well, but it's slightly different because with Outlook we also have to basically provision some mailboxes. So let's launch Outlook for the first time. Going to double click on it. And it's already detecting the user that I'm logged in as. So let's click connect and done. We do not want to add any other mailboxes. And for now, I'm going to say no to this setup Outlook mobile on my phone. We can do that later, or you can request assistance from Intivix to help you with that. So let's click done. Wait for our profile to load. And this is this is a test account, so hopefully you'd have more interesting emails than what I have here. But you get the idea. So basically, the first time that you sign on to the remote desktop, um, you'll have to go through this provisioning process. The second and subsequent times, Outlook will already know how to associate you with your mail profile, so it shouldn't prompt you for that, for that little setup. Okay. One other comment. We've been having, Intivix has been having some trouble getting Adobe Acrobat Reader installed on this new remote desktop server. There's some stability issues with that software. So for the meantime, if you do need to read a PDF, you'll notice that there's this Foxit Reader. This is basically a um, alternative PDF viewer. So you should still be able to, double click on a PDF and it should launch directly into Foxit Reader. Um, Unfortunately, it does, the first time you launch it, it does prompt for this registration. Just click Not Now. And if you want to set it to be your default PDF viewer, which you probably do want, otherwise one of the browsers will likely um, come in. Oh, okay. Never mind. Never mind that. Just leave it. Just ignore that setting. Looks like we'll need Intivix to help if you do want to change the default association. But um, if we are to, I don't know if I have any PDFs, but if you have a PDF in, um, well, let's see, we could do one here. We'll just save it to our desktop. A little test PDF. Okay, so you notice we did have the option via that pop-up dialog to set it as the default or to always use this application when opening PDFs. So that is fine. If you get one of these updates, just ignore. And that is it for the most part. There is there will be another video which shows how you can use the remote, even if you don't ever need to use the remote desktop to access any of these applications. There's one other use case where the remote desktop might come in handy, and that's if you're away from an IOA office, so at home, on the road, traveling, at a field engagement, and for some reason your password expires, or for some reason you need to change your password on short notice. as long as you have internet access, you should be able to log into a remote desktop server, and you can actually change your password from the remote desktop here, and in some cases from that first rds.ioaging.org website, the web access site. So I'll have a couple of screen captures that document that process. And that is it for this walkthrough. And if you do have any questions, please contact Intivix.